Independent of whether it's shared services or outsourcing, I think change management is the single biggest item on the agenda, and probably the most important thing that buying organizations or clients have to consider. It's almost analogous to an open heart surgery that one needs to do, and I think one of the challenges that I think clients underestimate is the amount of effort that's required to manage the change across different levels in the organization. It's not just about the executive sponsorship, which almost always exists, but it's really about what is the kind of communication that has happened at different levels in the organization. Have people been open and transparent of what this means for them? What are the business drivers to actually do shared services and or outsourcing? Sometimes, and in a lot of instances, we find that clients haven't really done a lot of these things which one would almost assume to be very basic. And therefore, a lot of effort that we end up spending time on is actually guiding clients through this effort, because we believe that sometimes it makes sense to actually delay the process of doing a shared services effort or an outsourcing effort, but get your change management right. If you look at the distribution of people between new clients versus existing clients, today about 95 to 96% of our business comes from our existing clients itself. And to us, that's a very important business indicator, because in some sense, it's reflective of the kind of value we are able to add to clients on a consistent and continuous basis. Now, that does not necessarily mean that you have 95% of the workforce that's dedicated towards new clients versus existing clients itself. But oftentimes, you have to draw people from your existing clients also to share experiences of what they've been through in the context of prospecting for new clients itself. And that's something that we end up seeing as being extremely critical. When you're actually staffing for a new client engagement, you've got to draw some people from an existing client, because they understand the DNA of the organization, they understand the methodologies, and they're able to therefore add value almost immediately, as opposed to someone coming in completely fresh from the outside. So I think it manifests itself also when you win a new client and you start delivering to that expectation as well, that you staff part of the engagement certainly from existing clients itself. I think innovation is a much abused and it's a word that's used excessively. It means different things to different people. So I don't think there's one common definition. I think to some, innovation is all about additional value without any price associated with it. To others, it's truly about driving that innovation agenda itself. I think what I have seen is that the firms which are progressive have been able to define what kind of innovation they're looking for at the appropriate stage of the life cycle itself. So whether is it product-led innovation, is it process-led innovation, and is it cost-led innovation? And where does the sourcing provider play a role in contributing to that innovation itself? The challenge that comes to mind is oftentimes people do not have a common alignment on the definition of innovation, and therefore there's an expectation mismatch. Second is the client is not ready to actually drive innovation within the organization because there's no buyer for the same. Third is the innovation is associated with the business case. And oftentimes, clients are not willing to cough up the investments that might be required to drive that innovation itself. And fourth is, people are in their comfort zone when it comes to governance meetings in an ongoing relationship, where they're happy to review service levels rather than actually think about what next. So we end up running into some of these mixed experiences, which kind of stifle the innovation agenda for firms itself. But I think first and foremost, it's probably important to get alignment on what the definition of innovation means to different people, so that there's one common goalpost that everybody's moving towards. So the choice between shared services and outsourcing is not so much about what variables influence it, as much as it's about where is a client organization from a risk dimension standpoint, from a control dimension standpoint, and from an economics perspective. These are the three variables that you're typically trying to balance out. If it is more about higher risk and higher control, the question to ask is, can an outsourcing arrangement allow you to achieve that? If it is about economics defined or delivered within a preset time period, is outsourcing the best answer versus shared services? Is the organization, at a certain level from a process standardization standpoint, or is it dysfunctional and has broken processes? These end up being later stage questions, but arriving at the right balance between risk control and economics at a point in time often influences the choice of operating model for a firm itself. And that's what we try to work with our clients to help guide them through that process in determining and making the appropriate trade-offs between these three variables. So I think you can break this the role of an advisory firm into a variety of parts. So I think one is the stage of the life cycle of a client organization in terms of their use of an advisory firm. Lots of times we end up seeing a client use an advisory firm when they're a first-time outsourcer and they don't have experience with the entire process itself. The biggest benefit in that context of using an advisory firm is the likelihood of a deal going through to closure is fairly high. Lots of times the client because they're looking for help, may not always know the process. And this is where I think the advisory firm can play a larger role than just trying to get it to be an apples-to-apples comparison. So to the extent that they can actually allow service providers to truly differentiate themselves, I think it makes the advisory process a lot more richer. There could be instances where a client and a service provider are talking to each other and they might be in a sole source conversation, but the client needs maybe an advisory input to validate what they're already thinking about as an outsourcing arrangement. And that's where sometimes the advisor can almost provide that validation to the entire process and say, look, this process is clear. We know that you want to enter into this arrangement with the service provider, and we think the advisory firm can play a role in that. Over a period in time, I think advisory firms themselves are trying to evolve their own role to going beyond the RFP process to saying what can they do in an ongoing governance standpoint. That's something that's still to be tested out in full measure. We see instances where they're involved and we see instances where they're not involved. And, I think it's been kind of a mixed bag, predating back to, what kind of involvement or relationship they've had with the client itself.